Hey you geeks! Brandon Sanderson's The Frugal Wizard's Guidebook to Medieval England was fun? Well, I liked many of its parts, but it didn't just come together the way that a normal Sanderson book does. True, it had a Sanderlanche, a musical inspiration, and homages to 80s movies. And yet, I felt there was something missing. Sanderson can't write passive-aggressive, for one, and the rest, well, here is my spoilerific breakdown of characters, world-building, magic system, and plot, along with a few Sanderson specials thrown in.
But it's a musical!
Sometimes I may stretch a bit to find a supposed musical inspiration for a Sanderson work. But here, I think it's safe to say How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying is so flagrant. It's the name of the second part, practically. I will add this to the list of Les Mis and Joseph as hills I will totally die on.
How to succeed!
Now, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Roonian John. Sanderson plays up the action hero tropes with John at the beginning. First, wiping his brain.
Now, why would I know that? How can I know that and not know who I am?
And then giving him a fridged love interest. True, Jen isn't dead at the end, but I don't think that makes it better. In some cases, I think it's worse. And then I find out he could have been a contender.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody instead of a bum, which is what I am.
Was not expecting the protagonist from Hollywood's adaptation of Rerum Novarum to show up in a Sanderson book. Yet, here we are with Marlon Brando starring in a Brando book. I really had fun imagining him in the role, and it seems like the artist did so as well, with the chin similarities at least. But like the book, Roonian just never became so fully realized as a normal Sanderson protagonist. He's a bit witty, a bit Terry Malloy, and a bit J.R.R. Tolkien, that is, Ransom, the latter two being notable boxers. But Roonian is like the discount version. Sando can't really write an authentic gangster character because Sando can't swear.
Stop cussing, because you're not good at it.
The proper gerund before hell is not loving. Flaming works, but it's never loving. And yet, I still had fun with Discount Roonian. His arc in principle going from a fighter who got beaten down to one who rises again to fight for what he believes in and offer himself as sacrifice to save the new magical world he loves was inspiring. Scop Cephawin. Again, she had such a promising beginning, a no-nonsense magic user here to hold our grifter hero accountable to the people. And I totally buy her and John's friendship, them bonding over imposter syndrome. Also, I wonder, with her knowledge of how things can be faked, did she in the past go a bit far in trying to preserve her profession?
No apologies, no explanations. You see, I'll only be in town a short while, and the sadder but wiser girl for me.
However, I'm not totally sold on her romance with John and the whole flirt to convert angle. If her story was fundamentally about her losing her faith, or rather fear, of Woden and defying him, then I feel like we missed a step.
That's me in the spotlight, losing my religion.
Moments of conversion are supposed to be profound moments of self-discovery and reorientation of the person. Yet I don't feel like I get that with Sapphiwin. I kinda got where she came from, and I kinda get where she's going, but I'm missing something. Maybe if Sanderson had seasoned in a bit of Good Country People, another tale of flirt to convert to atheism and profound realization at the end, I would have been able to better understand Sapphiwin's arc and her contradiction and her character as a whole. But as she was likable enough. Logna. First time through, I thought she was just a fun old woman character, the likes of which rarely get highlighted in modern fantasy. And then, when the realization hit, my reaction was, Loki's a girl?
You sure you're a Loki?
Second time through, after my Min video, it was so storming obvious that she was the archetypal hag. And let's take a moment to appreciate that the first thing she does is give Runian a stick. Then she gives him a proper charcoal pencil. Sander does a good job of misdirection with the Thane referring to Logna mythologically as Mother of Monsters. But let's not forget that Loki is technically the father of the 3 monsters of Ragnarok. Logna is probably my favorite character in this book because her story doesn't need a dynamic arc to be wonderful. She just needs to be tricky.
We better keep an eye on this one. She's tricky. She's wonderful.
As a trickster archetype, it says a lot about Sanderson's hierarchy of needs that his trickster would steal writing, as opposed to fire or wisdom being the more conventional options. Maybe she stole both as a hearth tender and all-around crone. Thane Alaston is also in this book, but he doesn't have much of an arc. It's weird how in Tress, every side character not named Doug had their own arc that I could relate to. Here, he's part of the main trio, and it was cool how he cut the guy's arm off at the end.
Now there's an arm on the floor.
He and Yazad seem like they're there to be positive masculine role models for John, but we don't get a lot of introspection or connection on that point. Yazad. It's been a bit since Sando's written a straight-up missionary character.
Hello, my name is Elder Price, and I would like to share with you the most amazing book.
A Zoroastrian missionary, which is a really cool way to highlight a historical religion that we don't hear of much in the West, probably because it originated in Iran, which I can personally guarantee has delicious pistachios. And yet, Zoroaster and I technically attended the same school. Considering in this dimension that Jesus was not crucified, I am very surprised that his followers remained around long enough to get a sect name. Anywho, Yazad seems like a nice dude. He gives our heroes a place to stay and disguises to enter the city. But outside of that, he doesn't contribute much to the underlying spiritual, psychological development of either John or Sapphiwin, which is weird because they have massive arcs that he seems to have been intended to contribute to, but I just didn't make the connection the first time through, or the second, or I could kind of see it on the third. The scene where it seems like he should be giving them spiritual direction just doesn't land for me. But you can't have Vikings without monasteries to raid, or rather, whatever Yazad's place is called. I wonder if he likes potholders.
Hey, it's the thought that counts.
Other elves. I think Jen faking her death was supposed to be a funny twist of the stereotypical fridge trope.
Let me get this straight. Are you saying that instead of having a conversation with your wife, you kill yourself to get out of the relationship?
Whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't kill myself. I'm immortal.
But it didn't work for me. To pull that off, you need a lot of passive-aggressive character establishment. And Sando either can't or just chose not to use that here. When he took over the Wheel of Time, he had a lot of trouble writing a character who thinks one thing, says another thing, and does a third thing, and is highly passive-aggressive. You know the one who's not a toy.
A secretary is not a toy.
Now I wonder, is Nebraska not only a land behind the times, but a land full of honest a-holes?
Bless his heart.
As opposed to everywhere else where a-holes are a little bit dishonest.
Me, I'm dishonest. And a dishonest man you can always trust to be dishonest.
Giving Ryan a more passive-aggressive character instead of someone who lists his list of grievances with the protagonist mere pages after the two meet would have set up Jen's reveal a lot better and made it more comedic. How it played out, I'm not sure if Sando intended to give John domestic abuser vibes, but he wrote a prize fighter living an unfulfilled life in an unhealthy relationship with a woman whose family hates him so much that they help her fake her death to get out of a relationship with him.
Oh, heavens. Answer that, will you? If it's Nick, tell him I'm dead.
The line between tragedy and comedy here is very fine, and Sanderson is standing right on the edge. It also gives complication with Cephalin and Runian's romance, which was 4 days long, and a month later, they are married. World building. Yes! This is what makes this book spectacular, giving important bits of information to the reader, if not the character.
You have done beautifully, unless you are vice president in charge of advertising. In that case, you're in terrible trouble.
Though it is certainly an unreliable informer, taking the basic premise of a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court, stating that a modern man, or he, she, or they are very inclusive in taking your money, is superior to anyone from the past.
Here goes.
Then Sanderson adds a substance superiority complex, wherein anyone of Earth's substance level is worthy of rights, but not the locals. They are mere pawns in your plans for Europe domination. I find it interesting that C.S. Lewis uses the same principle when describing the difference between heaven and hell in his book The Great Divorce, and to a lesser extent his space trilogy, with heaven being super substantial and hell being insubstantial. So the book's joke about having a mental breakdown upon realizing that our world might be an offset of a larger, more substantial one, inhabited by beings whose presence bends our concept of time, space, and reality, was very relatable.
That's ancient history, been there, done that.
It's also great foreshadowing for whatever the gods are in this version of medieval England. This is why I maintain that whatever Jordan is to Tolkien, Sanderson is to Lewis. Of course, the book goes on to disprove the premise that modern man is intuitively superior to the locals of England, as well as that one should not worry about the superdimensional beings finding your particular dimension and inhabiting it. In the end, Runian declines to take up the white man's, wizard's burden, and live amongst the people as a traveling storyteller in a vibrant cloak. Oh, is he a gleeman? By which I mean a medieval Walish traveling local poet who, according to Robert Graves, knows the truth about poetry, which requires no poet can hope to understand the nature of poetry unless he has had a vision of the naked king crucified to a lopped oak and watched the dancers, red-eyed from the acrid smoke of the sacrificial fires, stamping out the measure of the dance, their bodies bent uncouthly forward with a monotonous chant of kill, 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 and blood, blood, blood.
That's ancient history, been there, done that.
I suppose this is what accounts for Woden's little stunt with the tree, and Cephalin's refutation of him and the fact that she is a woman Scot poet means that Sanderson refutes Graves' premise here, and I am so okay with that. Magic system. By which I guess I mean the high-tech gadgetry that makes the skin change colors, so this should really be titled Technology. Sanderson technically sells this as science fiction, allowing for the acts of gods and whites to be explained by probability. It just so happens that Runian has landed in one of the most improbable dimensions, although that's only improbable if you're standing from the frame of reference of our dimension. If one, I suppose, were to stand outside of all dimensions, then wouldn't any dimension be equally improbable? Anywho, this fun scientific element gives us Runian superpowers, which are not magical.
If you can think it, the microbots can do it.
And yet, I think Sanderson metaphorically shot himself in the foot with this one. Runian's nanites rob him of the ability to feel pain, feel warmth or cold, or have a regular sleep schedule. All the things that would make him relatable to at least me as a reader. Even his emotions are somewhat stunted as he almost always all too logically assesses his surroundings, even when the runes actually glow.
Her hair glows.
We're alive. I'm alive.
I didn't see that coming.
Eugene?
The hair actually glows.
Eugene!
Why does her hair glow?
Eugene!
What?
Even if motivated by cowardly self-preservation, Runian acts with stone-cold logic 98% of the time, which makes this work very difficult to emotionally connect to since he's our only POV character.
This is just gonna be a bunch of guys chucking rocks at each other, isn't it?
That's what I paid for.
Usually Sanderson can deliver both emotion and action, and this does one of those things very well. Plot. Finishing this book felt a lot like finishing Beowulf in high school, so bravo for Brandon, what with its boasts and alliteration and a boatload of exposition on an antagonist who we don't actually face. In Beowulf, it's the Frisians led by their king Finn.
Curious. Very curious.
And here it's the Bear King of the Woods. Instead of being the Bear King's son, Runian just goes to face his old adversary for the fate of the world and have a boxing match. We have a superdimensional being choose randomly, but choose a man from our world to come to her magical world to save it from men also from this world and agents of the adversarial superdimensional being. The boxer also influences a woman of the magical world in her choice of which god to serve. And the whole thing comes down to a boxing match. Naturally, I'm talking about Perelandra.
I did not see that coming.
Like, really, the fate of a whole world where history and mythology come together in one is decided by a boxing match. Well, Sanderson at least splits the fates up and gives Cephawin the outright refusal of the adversarial supradimensional being, while allowing for the Thane to do the actual killing, as he, being the little father, is the only one who is legally entitled to kill someone in that position. Still, if I had a nickel for every time an archetypal hag teamed up with an interdimensional wizard to save a magical realm, I'd have 2 nickels.
Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
In short, maybe this book needed to simmer longer. Sanderson always seems to recycle and reinterpret old plots from popular stories, yet here they were almost too identifiable, and he doesn't bring much of his own unique perspective, except for maybe the inability to feel pain, which didn't help. I guess he also brought Vikings.
What do you know, the terrors of the sea?
I choose to believe that a dimension of talking Viking vegetables is totally out there. And even though this book had a delightful discourse on the likelihood of a dimension of talking bananas, if I had to choose between this book and Howl's Moving Castle, I'd choose Howl's Moving Castle. This book was good for Sanderson even, but not great. So, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe if you would like to see more. Thanks!